Hello, this is Dan Kerr. It's June 15th, 2024. We're at Columbia Heights Festival. Could you tell me your name?
My name is Wei.
And Wei, could you tell me about your relationship to Columbia Heights?
So I actually moved here in September of 2020. So it was the middle of the pandemic and everything was shut down. And I'd never lived in DC before, so I didn't know the neighborhood. I had a friend who sort of pointed me somewhere in this direction. So I was actually lucky. I ended up in an apartment complex because I was having a drink at the bar next door. So it's been 4 years, and I absolutely love this neighborhood.
Okay, you had to tell me that story. You were having a drink in a bar and you ended up, what happened?
It was hard to look for places to live, and I just happened to have a friend who said, I lived in DC 15 years ago. And so he was like, oh, it's all about Cardozo now. And I was like, okay, I don't know where that is. It's all about Shaw now. I don't know where that is. So I ended up visiting a different apartment somewhere on Oak and 14th Street, and then sort of walked up 14th Street. And then there was just this corner bar called Lyman's, which I found out later that it was like a whole neighborhood local. But it's right next door to this Twin Oaks apartments, and it had this giant, like we were renting. So, and I walked in to the office.
And they had a spot.
And they had so many open apartments. It was a glorious time for apartment hunting.
Wow.
Because everybody had, it was like cheap rent because people were moving out of the city during COVID. So, and everything was self-tour. So I just got a bunch of keys. And I went up and down the stairs. It was the middle of the summer, so I was running up and down stairs looking at all the apartments.
Oh my God, that was hot. I'm sure it was hot.
But yeah, and then it's just, I have this huge window and it overlooks Piney Branch. So it's that strip between Piney Branch and like 14th, sort of, so it's all green. And so every year I watch the seasons change because the trees are just, anyway, so I'm talking about it because I'm leaving soon, which is why I'm very sad about it.
So tell me some of your favorite parts about the neighborhood.
Favorite parts about the neighborhood, it's so vibrant. It's always so many people walking around. Yesterday, there were these two kids and they were standing on the street corner and they were selling handmade bracelets. And there's a lot of history here, I think, and people from different backgrounds, and I really appreciate that. And on the corner that I live, there's a little mini mart. It's run by a pretty extended, I think, Ethiopian family. And they've been so nice, and they did so well for themselves that they expanded next door from the corner shop, and they built out this really cute coffee shop, which is like a sign of gentrification, I guess, if you wanted to say it that way. But then at the same time, I'm like, but no, these are just immigrant families who've been here, and they've just built their whole families here. And then like half a block down from that is an El Salvador grocery store, and it's the same thing. Like the current owner took it over from his uncle, who took it over from, and I just find that so fascinating that people come to this random place, it feels like, and they just put down roots. And
that's so great. And so you've talked to all these folks and gotten to know them, to know these histories?
Here and there. The thing about living in a city is that you don't really have to talk to anyone if you don't want to.
Right. No.
But I'm a person of habit, so I go to the same place all the time, and I buy the same things all the time, every time. So you end up having chats about things.
That's great. Yeah. And so, are there any favorite memories you have from the neighborhood? Favorite
memories? Oh man, there's a liquor store next to the bar where I was drinking. The guy there, he's so good at branding himself and advertising his little tiny liquor store. So he brings in all these, what do they call them? I guess like whiskey, just different liquor salespeople, and they do like free tastings. So I think from all of these people coming in, he has all these just random bottles of liquor, and he keeps several bags with the little tiny shot glasses. So every once in a while, he's always like, whenever you want a shot, Wei. And I've had some terrible days where I'm just walking home and I look miserable, and I wander in there and so I really like that. Yeah, and it's just the idea. I mean, it just seems like people are here. They're not here as short term as other neighborhoods. If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Are there things that you've seen change in the neighborhood, and even in that short span that either that you liked or that you didn't like?
So the neighborhood itself has not changed so much in 4 years. There hasn't been an enormous amount of businesses going on. I mean, there have been a couple of new bars, a couple of new restaurants, especially, I think, Petworth. So where I'm on 14th and Randolph, which is a strange kind of intersection between Petworth, Columbia Heights, and 16th Street Heights. I'm right in the middle there. So I've seen Petworth sort of become a little bit more upscale. Columbia Heights, not so much. I will say that in the last few months, the grocery stores that I go to have started taking measures against, I guess, theft. So the Giant store, apparently they've banned bags of anything larger than a backpack. And in the Safeway on Georgia Avenue, they built, when I first saw it, I was like, you must have spent so much money on this, but they built out these metal gates with digital scanners. You scan your receipt to go in and out. And I was kind of like, and in this neighborhood, you know, it's not the wealthiest neighborhood in DC. And if you looked at DC history, apparently the house prices here have only appreciated according to inflation. They haven't really gone up in value outside of that. So there's still people, I mean, they're unhoused, and there are folks who are just sort of wandering around. And I just find this to be really exclusive and aggressive. And I've mentioned this in neighborhood groups sometimes, and some people are like, well, this is to prevent people from stealing laundry detergent and stuff and selling it in front of the Columbia Heights Mall. And I'm like, but, I mean, what kind of, so I didn't want to get into this argument, but I was basically like, we live in a city that people aren't being taken care of, and they can't find jobs to support themselves and their families, so they resort to these sort of small business situations, but also, people are begging for food right outside the grocery store. It's just bizarre that, like, this has become such a security apparatus. Anyway, so that's the thing that I've noticed. It wasn't like that when I first got here.
Wow. No, that's great. Thank you. So what, I know you said that you're leaving soon.
Yeah.
But obviously you care a lot about the neighborhood, and I'm wondering what you would hope for the future of the neighborhood. And
I want there to be more Oh gosh, I sound like such a What's this?
That's okay. Yeah.
It's I want there to be more neighborhood services, and I think DC is really great in that there are so many community centers, and there's just like 3 or 4 within like a 10-minute walking radius, which is great. But I think more services and more affordable housing. And I live in I think a rent stabilized complex, so that's been great. But in general, there have been some new condos going up. I just don't know how affordable those are. And that. And then other than that, I don't want it to deteriorate. I think maybe that's the other thing I would say, especially closer to the metro station. It seems like the CVS closed recently. And so now it's just become a giant, I don't even know what it is now. It's just, and there have been some construction going on. So they put up the scaffolding, and then they put up these boards over the scaffolding. So then you have this like tunnel situation, and I don't know what's going on now, But so they're just different, there are areas that I don't want to see go downhill. Yeah, and I want, and when people talk about, and then people are always moving into DC, and they'll always say, oh, but I heard the crime rate is going up. And then people will say, Columbia Heights is not so great. And somebody will tell a story, I was just walking down Irving, and some 11-year-old decided to pick my pocket. And I don't want that to become the narrative. Like, this is not an unsafe neighborhood. And there's a reason why things are the way that they are, and I just don't want it to get any worse. And I want people to lose faith, here, so.
That's great. Okay. Any last words you want to leave us with?
No, I love this city. And everyone wants to be downtown and Logan Circle and DuPont Circle. And then, no, Ward 4 is great. Ward 4 is fantastic. And the council, Ward 4 council, is it Janice? I like her. So.
That's begging for a question. Do you want to say any more about that, or are you satisfied with that? Or?
Well, I don't care. My politics is pretty public. She spoke out against MPD clearing the GW encampment. And I always really appreciated that from her. And she was one of the only two. One of the only two out of the entire DC Council who actually spoke up about it. The other thing is she frequents businesses here and she'll leave comments on their Instagram. It's great. So that's it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's really thoughtful, and best of luck to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dan.